By the time the 6th patrol car slid sideways up the gravel lane and slammed to a halt beside the sagging barn, I'd already set the percolator going on the stove. Red and blue strobes slashed across the sun-bleached siding of the century-old Mercer place, ricocheting off the hand-painted sign. My great-granddaddy lettered back when Harding was president. Doors flew open, and deputies spilled out like it was a meth lab takedown instead of a farm whose worst offense in 10 years had been letting the chickens roam one night. Leading the charge was Amanda Keene herself, HOA president of Cedar Ridge Estates, in a navy blazer, wedge heels punching holes in the mud, face glowing with the righteous fury of someone who'd finally been handed the keys to the kingdom. She flung one manicured hand toward the porch like she was unveiling a statue. "That's him," she announced to the officers. "He's trespassing on HOA-owned property." The board voted to annex the parcel for covenant violations. Multiple warnings have been issued. I didn't budge. Just stayed propped in the doorway of the farmhouse, white t-shirt, faded Wranglers, scuffed boots, one hand wrapped around a steaming mug, the other lazily propping up my phone so the camera caught everything. On the screen, and a big red timer ticked upward from 000001. The nearest deputy squinted at it. "What's the timer for, sir?" I gave him the slow, flat smile my daddy taught me. "That," I said, "is how long you'll have been on the record committing a federal civil rights violation. Don't fret though." I tapped the screen. Cloud backups automatic. My attorney gets the file in real time. Amanda's mouth opened, closed. Somewhere high above, the soft mosquito whine of a drone slid across the sky right on cue. A deputy's radio crackled loud enough for everyone to hear. "Unit 12, stand by. County attorney just called something about lack of jurisdiction." I lifted my mug in salute. "Welcome to Mercer Farm, folks. Clock's running." I'm the kind of man the manicured lawn crowd never learned how to catalog. 36 years old, living by myself on 80 acres. My people broke sod on before the roaring 20s started roaring. Mercer Farm, Est. 1925. The house is older than every McMansion in the neighboring subdivision put together, and then some. I cut hay, rent pasture to a cattleman down the road, mend my own wire, and converse mainly with a blue heeler named Buck and whatever's playing on the AM station. No wild parties, no jacked up diesel rolling coal, no rusting hulks for yard art. Just an old red farmel, a quiet routine. And the same ornery streak that kept 3 generations from selling out to drought, depression, or the interstate that got rerouted after Grandpa padlocked himself to a cottonwood in '78. The trouble wasn't anything I did. The trouble was what sprouted up around me like kudzu. Cedar Ridge Estates crept in one cul-de-sac at a time. Courtesy of Sycamore Horizon Development, LC, rows of beige vinyl castles inching toward my fence like they had a destiny. With them came jogging trails that somehow needed to skirt my corn. Instagram families posing in front of my barn like it was public scenery. And next-door threads written by people who moved to the country and then lost their minds when a rooster announced sunrise. At the helm of it all stood Amanda Keene, HOA president, licensed realtor, and self-crowned guardian of Cedar Ridge's aesthetic integrity. Haircut that cost more than my vet bill. Email signature longer than most novellas. She introduced herself a year ago by clicking up my driveway in stilettos, surveying the barn, the silo, the ancient sugar maple, and declaring, "This could be absolutely breathtaking with the right vision." "I like the vision it's got," I told her. She smiled the way you smile at a dog that just won't heal. That set the tone. Soon, Cedar Ridge listing photos started featuring my red barnas, a charming rural backdrop. Brochures bragged about farm-adjacent heritage lifestyle. Nobody bothered asking permission. I might have let it slide until the HOA decided that if they could see it, they owned it. It began small. An email from the official Cedar Ridge account. Friendly reminder that although your parcel lies just outside our covenants, it forms a significant visual component of our community. We'd adore partnering on minor enhancements, perhaps a softer barn color, relocation of vintage equipment, and consideration of livestock noise during family hours. I wrote back, "No, thank you. Not interested." 4 words, same as my granddaddy used on the highway department. She didn't care for brevity. Next thing I know, when I come home from the co-op and there's a laminated Cedar Ridge notice stapled to my gate announcing proposed view enhancements. Volunteers in matching polo shirts are out there with measuring wheels, plotting a trail along my fence. Somebody kids are climbing my round bales because mommy said it's community land. I walked out calm, pointed at the survey stakes. Y'all are welcome to turn around and march right back over that fence line. Been the boundary since Calvin Coolidge. They left grumbling that Amanda promised this would all be nowhere amenity space soon enough. Soon enough. That phrase lodged in my craw like a cockleburr. Then the letters started. First, the HOA, Cedar Ridge Estates, is proud to incorporate adjacent open parcels into our master plan community. Then Sycamore Horizon Development. We represent parties eager to acquire your acreage for seamless integration, including clubhouse, resort pool, and expanded trail system. Then Amanda in person, stepping out of her white Lex, us, clutching a thick folder, voice dripping honey. It's truly win-win, well above ag value. You could relocate somewhere more suitable. Modern buyers don't want tractors in their sightlines indefinitely. I hooked thumbs in my pockets. Not selling. Her smile went brittle. You'll want to reconsider. Communities evolve. No one likes being the holdout. Been holding just fine since 1925, I said. Still not selling. That's when polite turned to war. The monthly newsletter ran coy. Little blurbs about blighted properties dragging down values. Residents suddenly discovered the smell of cattle offended them on land zoned ag since before their neighborhood existed. Amanda took a slick 30-slide deck to the County Planning Commission titled From Underutilized Farmland to Community Asset. Half the pictures mine, none of them authorized. She figured it was inevitable. Suburbs always win. Farmers always fold. What Amanda Keene didn't know was that Mercer dirt runs deeper than her covenants, and I'm nowhere near as alone as I look standing on that porch. The fatal misstep arrived disguised as a zoning. Here Amanda Keene wearing her dual hats as Cedar Ridge HOA president and self-declared voice of progress filed a formal petition with the county to rezone and forcibly annex the Mercer parcel into the Cedar Ridge planned unit development. The packet was thick, glossy, and confident. Renderings of a stone-accented clubhouse, 6 lighted pickleball courts, a rustic community garden laid out exactly where my best hayfield now grows, and one carefully worded bullet point about ongoing negotiations with current occupant. You could practically hear her practicing the word occupant in the mirror so it wouldn't accidentally come out owner. I only found out because state law required the county to mail notice to the actual titled owner. I sat at the same oak table my granddaddy died at, reading every page while the coffee went cold and my jaw got tighter than baling wire. They were treating a century of Mercer dirt like it was already theirs to pave. I showed UPAT the hearing. They genuinely didn't expect that. Small county commission room flickering fluorescence, the faint smell of old carpet and burnt popcorn. Amanda, up front with her MacBook Air, HOA board in identical salmon pink polos lined up behind her like backup singers. And here, she said, clicking to the next slide with a flourish, you can see how the Cedar Ridge Phase 4 expansion transforms this frankly blighted, underutilized agricultural tract into vibrant, family-oriented amenity space. My barn filled the screen, big as life. Not a single pixel blurred. I raised my hand. The chairman blinked. Yes, sir in the hat. I stood. Quick question for the record. What do you call it when somebody tries to annex land they don't own without ever bothering to ask the owner? The room did that thing where every chair creaks at once. Amanda's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I wasn't aware, Mr. Mercer. We have attempted outreach attempts noted, I said, walking to the front. I set a 2-inch stack of documents in front of the board like I was dealing cards. Copy of the original Mercer deed, 1925, with every transfer since, current ag zoning certificate, grandfather's conservation easement recorded 32 years ago, binding in perpetuity, renewable every decade. and renewed every decade. Letter from the State Department of Agriculture confirming Mercer Farm's official designation as a Century Heritage Farm protected status, tax benefits, and a very explicit prohibition on non-agricultural development, and, because I'm petty when I need to be. A second letter, this one from the State Attorney General's office acknowledging receipt of my complaint regarding Cedar Ridge's unauthorized use of my property in marketing materials and misrepresentation of its availability to buyers. Investigation pending. The chairman looked like a man calculating how fast he could retire. So just to be clear, he said, voice slow, you are the owner. You are not selling. And this parcel is under a state-enforced conservation easement that prohibits exactly what's being proposed, correct? I said. Amanda's face turned the color of a ripe watermelon. This is highly inappropriate. The HOA has covenant rights, the county planner finally spoke up. Quiet, but final. Cedar Ridge Estates has zero recorded jurisdiction over the Mercer parcel. It was never platted into your PUD. This petition is legally impossible, in plain English. Dead on arrival. It should have ended there. Butigo is stronger than the law in some people. Instead of licking her wounds, Amanda went scorched earth. She started telling neighbors and, more importantly, the sheriff's dispatcher that I was unpredictable, possibly armed, mentally unstable, and illegally blocking lawful community access. She claimed, in writing, that the HOA held unrecorded easements across my land and that I was defying legitimate enforcement orders. None of it is true, but close enough to the gray zone to get patrol cars rolling. That's how. One Wednesday morning, I stepped onto the porch with my coffee and watched 6 cruisers fishtail up the drive behind Amanda's gleaming white Lexus. She had called them to assist with enforcement of HOA property rights. She had just turned her little turf war into a federal civil rights case, and I had been waiting weeks for her to do exactly that. People see a quiet farmer and assume he's behind the times. Adorable. In the month after the zoning hearing, I mounted 3-4,000 cameras, gate, barn, porch, all cloud-backed, motion-triggered, set to auto-upload the moment certain keywords were spoken. I retained a civil rights attorney. The AG's office keeps on speed dial for exactly this flavor of nonsense. I signed up for a service that drafts and files complaints the second I hit a panic button on my phone. Most importantly, I sat down with the sheriff and the county attorney, coffee, no cameras, and laid it out. If that HOA calls you about me, you call this number first. I slid them the county attorney's direct line. Private ag land, state protected, no easements, no jurisdiction. In writing. Both men nodded, signed the letter now laminated to my gatepost, and meant it. So when Amanda marched up my step, waving her manila folder like a warrant, flanked by 6 deputies who suddenly looked uncomfortable. I didn't raise my voice. I just opened the timer app on my phone and hit start. 0:00:01, 0 hour 0 minute and 2 seconds. Clean, date-stamped proof of how long they stayed. After being told on camera they had no business here, Mr. Mercer, the lead deputy, started shifting his weight. We've been asked to assist Cedar Ridge HOA with, before you finish that sentence, I said, as Sunday. Look at the sign on my gate. They turned. Laminated county seal. Bold black letters. Law enforcement is hereby advised that Mercer Farm is private property, agriculturally zoned, under state conservation easement. No HOA, developer, or adjacent entity possesses any recorded easement, right-of-way, or enforcement authority. All access requires express owner consent, signed by the county attorney himself. The deputy read it once. Read it again. His radio crackled before he could speak. All units, stand down. County attorney says no jurisdiction. Repeat. No jurisdiction. Amanda stood there in her muddy wedge heels, mouth opening and closing like a fish. The Thaddeus discovered water was optional. I took a slow sip of coffee. Clock kept ticking. The deputy read the sign once, then again, slower, lips moving. Behind him, another radio sparked to life. Alunits, Mercer Farm. This is dispatch. County Attorney Lawson on the line. Confirm jurisdiction before any action. Repeat. Confirm jurisdiction. Amanda's smile jittered like a bad fluorescent bulb. Officer, she blurted, clutching her folder like a life raft. We have a duly passed HOA resolution right here. The board voted to seize this parcel for chronic covenant violations. He's trespassing on community property. Trespassing, I said, tasting the word. On my great-granddaddy's dirt. One of the younger deputies shifted his weight. Looking anywhere but at Amanda, the lead officer cleared his throat. Ma'am, HOA covenants do not grant seizure authority. That's not a real thing. But our bylaws, your bylaws, don't outrank a recorded deed and 2 layers of state law, he said. Voice flat. My phone timer rolled past 0002. I spoke loud and clear for every microphone in range. For the record, I am the sole legal owner of Mercer Farm. This is private property. No one here has my permission to be past that gate without a warrant or exigent circumstances. Anyone got a warrant? Dead silence. The drone overhead sounded like a lazy bee. Sir, we're just trying to. One deputy started. Then you can try it in reverse, I said. Turn around and leave the way you came. Every radio crackled at once. Unit 12. This is Lawson Direct. You are on private ag zone land under a state conservation easement. Stand down now. We'll deal with the HOA separately. You could actually see the tension leak out of the deputies like air from a tire. The lead officer exhaled through his teeth. Copy that. He turned to Amanda. Ma'am, we're not seizing anything today. This is a civil matter, and it sure doesn't look like it's going your way. Amanda's cheeks went scarlet. You can't just leave. He's obstructing community progress. This sets a terrible precedent, ma'am, the deputy cut in, patience gone. The terrible precedent would be us dragging a man off his own land, because an HOA voted on it. We're done here. I tapped the screen. 0317. Thank you, officers. This footage, plus your on-body audio, gets forwarded to council in about 30 seconds. 2 deputies glanced straight up at the drone. That thing live? One asked. Lift to the cloud and a very interesting folder at the Attorney General's office titled Cedar Ridge HOA Overreach, I said. Amanda went from red to the color of old dishwater. She hadn't planned for anyone. Above the county level to care. The storm hit Cedar Ridge the way a late summer thunderhead hits dry wheat fast and biblical. First came the certified letters from the state Attorney General's Civil Rights Division. 1 in every mailbox, 1 to every board member, key phrases in bold, investigating allegations of attempted interference with constitutionally protected property rights, pattern of harassment and misrepresentation to law enforcement, potential civil rights violations. Then the county scheduled a special public meeting titled, Appropriate Use of Emergency Services. I didn't say a word. Didn't have to. They rolled the footage on the big screen. 6 cruisers tearing up my drive. Amanda, waving her folder like Moses with new tablets. The deputy reading my gate sign aloud. Radios ordering stand down. And Amanda's crystal clear line, we voted to seize this land, replayed in slow motion 3 times for emphasis. Half the subdivision was in that room. Phones were out. Someone in row 6 whispered, loud enough for the mic. She told us the county approved the expansion. That same night, the county commission unanimously reprimanded Cedar Ridge HOA for misuse of law enforcement, banned them from filing any rezoning or annexation proposal involving non-HOA land without notarized owner consent, and mailed their findings to the AG and the state HOA oversight board with a bow on top. The hammer kept falling. The AG extracted a consent decree. $25,000 fine, mandatory board retraining, third-party oversight of all future enforcement. My civil suit landed next: harassment, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The sheriff's dispatch system got a new permanent note: any call from Cedar Ridge HOA referencing Mercer Farm equals non-emergency. Route to county attorney, do not respond. Then the insurance company saw the video. Premiums tripled overnight. Director and officer coverage got gutted. The carrier delivered a simple ultimatum: Certain board members had to go, or the whole HOA would lose coverage. Amanda Keene weighs Hicks a bit. She tried the martyr play victim of a vindictive farmer, protecting property values, etc. It lasted about a week. The county published an FAQ titled, "What an HOA cannot do no matter what your bylaws say." Question 1. Can an HOA seize or annex land it doesn't own? Answer. No. See Mercer Farm v. Cedar Ridge Estates. Her own brokerage quietly cut her loose. Nobody wants to be that Cedar Ridge lady in the listing remarks. Realtor lunches turned into seminars. The Amanda Keene story, how not to lose everything over a barn. The final blow came at the emergency membership meeting. 200 residents crammed into the community center. Special election to remove board members for cause. The vote wasn't close. 68-12 to oust Amanda Keene. She stood at the back in the same blazer she wore to my porch, clutching that same leather folder like it could still save her. When the results flashed on the screen, she opened her mouth. One last defense. One last spin. The interim president, a mild accountant named Paul, who looked like he hadn't slept since the drones showed up, didn't even let her finish. Motion carries. Miss Keene, you were removed from the board effective immediately. I was protecting property values, she said, voice cracking like thin ice. I was doing what was best for the community. Paul looked straight at her, exhausted and done. You tried to steal a man's farm with 6 police cars, Amanda, on camera. We're under state supervision and a $25,000 fine because of you. The room stayed dead quiet. Amanda's hands shook so hard the folder rattled. She turned, heels clicking across the linoleum, 200 pairs of eyes tracking her all the way to the double doors. Nobody clapped. They didn't need to. Outside, the night smelled like cut hay and distant rain, same as it had since 1925.